I would like to welcome everyone to Faces on the Main Line. I'm your host, Rich Pagano. Today, our special guest is Bodine Sanders. Bodine just wrote a book entitled Race Against Race, My Journey of Diversity and Inclusion Through Sports. Bodine, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rich. I appreciate it.
I have quite a few questions I want to ask you. I'd like to start out to really get the gist of your book. What inspired you to write the book?
Wow, a lot of things, but I'll keep it simple. The first person to offer advice was Howie Long. I was attending his youngest son's lacrosse tournament down in Maryland. And one of our fellow alumni was with us, and Bob Capone. And Mr. Capone helped recruit Howie to Villanova. So he begins telling Howie Long my story. And Howie, being highly intelligent, wise, worldly, he looked at me and he said, "Hey, that makes a great story. You ought to put it on paper." So that was the first time.
Okay.
And then over the years, a lot of folks would remind me of our experience at Villanova and where I came from. And I said, you know what? I probably should tell the story. But the real thing that kicked it off was when Colin Kaepernick took a knee. Was that four years ago?
Yeah,
roughly.
about that, yeah.
And I would see the local media say, "Oh, we need to have the race conversation." And if I was in my car, I'd yell at my radio. If I was sitting in the living room, I'd throw something at the TV and I'd say, "Hold on. Athletes who've played on diverse teams have had this conversation." So I figured, you know what? Why not put it on paper?
Well, everything that you did put on paper, what was the most difficult topic or subject that you had to put on paper? Because you had it all up here in your head. Was there anything that comes to mind?
Oh, absolutely. Well, a lot of things were tough because it took me back. I mean, I had to recall all of this information, all these experiences, and it was emotional. Writing about my mom, obviously, and my godmother was emotional. But, there are a lot of ups and downs. So writing about, in chapter 5, there's a topic on the police and how Velcher Dawson and I got pulled over by the police, right? There are a lot of relevant topics that are in the book relative to what we're experiencing now in terms of conversations.
Yeah.
So that's a good example. That's one of them. That was tough.
Tough to get on paper.
Yeah.
Because I was wondering, in reading the book, I'm thinking, how is your book different than other books that have been written on inclusion and diversity? Mm-hmm. What would you tell the people out there? How is your book different than what other people have written about it?
Well, diversity and inclusion is relatively new, right? So I finished Villanova in 1989. I don't think we were using that lexicon then. So over the years, there have been books written on race and sports or race in America, right? And my book is a combination of writing about sports and race, right? Race relations. So what I know and learned was that a lot of the previous books dealt with general topics like, should athletes be paid as student athletes, or the diaspora of the athlete, meaning where the athlete came from, his or her humble beginnings, or coming from a big city to, a suburb, the socioeconomic issues. And I wanted to do and write about something deeper. Like, if you're watching a sports program and you hear an athlete getting interviewed, and that athlete, be it he or she, says, "That's my teammate, that's my brother, that's my sister," well, that 5-minute interview, that block interview, doesn't give enough information on how the athletes get to the point where they feel their family, their brother and sister. I wanted to write exactly how that happens. I wanted to go deeper into the process of how athletes become family.
I see. And I noticed that each chapter and topic, it ends with the word race.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us why you did that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
It was interesting.
the word race has an academic dictionary definition and a meaning, right? The definition is competition. The meaning in our language is someone's ethnicity, right?
Right.
And my book is a binary narrative. It's about sports and race relations and how those two meet in the intersection of our lives. So
Okay, yeah.
I felt that would be a good little twist to put on it.
I guess it would be nice for the viewers to know about the start of your journey and, growing up in the South.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, great question. Born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida. I was born in 1965, so that was the year of the Voting Rights Act. And obviously the previous year was the Civil Rights Act. So you can imagine where we were as a country at that time, right? So I grew up in pretty much a black environment, black community, and I didn't start playing sports until junior high school. Now they call it middle school, but junior high school. So let's start there. In junior high school, all my coaches were black men. High school, all the coaches were black men. And so that was my experience, right? I also don't remember having a white teammate. So my entire team was African American. So that was pretty much the environment I grew up in. So in other words, I had no major diversity in my background or in my environment that was positive. Like if we played a white team, that white team may have had diversity on it. They may have had a number of black athletes on it, but my team didn't. So I never had a white friend, right? So then I go to college, I get to Cheney University, the oldest HBCU in the country. Cheney was founded in 1837.
Can we tell them what that abbreviation stands for?
Yeah,
To
HBCU, Historically Black College and University.
Right.
And so at Cheney, I had all black coaches, right? Pretty much, I mean, I don't remember, but because that was a long time ago, but we didn't have 10 white brothers on the team. We didn't have that. So I'm going to say we had an all black team. So when I get to Villanova, that changes. So when I transfer to Villanova, we have one black coach and the rest coaching staff was white. So that was my experience. That was part of the beginning of the process of me embracing my new environment, growing, learning, becoming wise, so to speak. And so that was the difference. So I wanted to write about that. I wanted to write about how I went from my environment to a different environment and was able to learn from it, grow from it, learn to embrace it, and then graduate with a positive outcome, not a negative outcome.
So you had kind of a cultural shock going to Cheney, but going from Cheney to Villanova, that's another cultural shock.
Well,
Can you explain the difference there? I mean,
yeah, well, it wasn't a culture shock to go from high school to Cheney because I kind of grew up in a black environment. But you're right, transferring from Cheney to Villanova was the new environment that I had to embrace. And I wouldn't say it was culture shock because I was focused. I was focused on playing football, right? That was my focus. And maybe that's what helped me grow and adapt to my new environment because I was focused on proving I could play football, right? And I had to do the same thing at Cheney. When I got to Cheney, I was a walk-on. So I had to prove that I could play football on a Division II level. And that's the only reason I left Cheney. I left Cheney because Villanova was a better opportunity to play at a higher level of football.
right, right.
So I wasn't disappointed with Cheney. I love Cheney. Great campus. I had a great time. But when you're presented with an opportunity to play Division II football versus Division I AA, it's kind of a no-brainer. And then as a little chocolate Marshall growing up in Florida, I imagined as a kid growing up playing for Florida, Florida State, Miami, Auburn, Alabama, Kentucky, South Carolina, all the SEC and ACC schools, right? That's what, growing up in the South, as a kid, I dreamed about. So playing at a Division I level was my dream.
So that Southern upbringing, the values you had, how was that different when you got up north? Were things different in a value system kind of way?
No, it was different because I wasn't familiar with the Catholic religion because I grew up Southern Baptist. I attended my grandmother's church, Southern Baptist church. She was one of the head ushers. So there was a spiritual foundation that I had because we went to Sunday school on Sunday mornings.
Right.
And then we'd have a break as kids, and then we would attend church. So what I quickly learned was there's a difference between attending 3, 4, 5 hours of church at a Southern Baptist church and attending a Catholic mass for an hour. Huge difference. And I write about it in the book. When I attended my first mass, I was like, wow, it's over? Oh, I can handle this. This is pretty cool. So, but those are the things that you learn when you travel outside of your environment or travel outside your space. And it's all about growing and learning.
Yeah, and they always talk about stereotypes too. So you get up here, at what point do the students up here see that maybe you don't fit the stereotype of what they knew in the black community?
Well, guess what? That happened at Cheney too, because I went from a Southern culture to a Northeast culture, and the students that I was attending school with at Cheney, most of them was from the East Coast, the North, what do you call it, the Mid-Atlantic, right? So I was attending, some of my classmates at Cheney were from Washington, D.C., Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, New York. Like my introduction to classmates from New York was amazing, and I quickly learned that their personalities were different, right? I came from the hospitality region, right? Where you say hello, you greet people, you make eye contact, you be friendly. Man, when I met people from New York, it was like, why are you talking to me? What do you want, right? So I quickly learned that there was a difference. And that was a good thing, right? It's a good thing, you learn.
I think, since writing the book, some problems with race relations have continued. Mm-hmm. What would the difference be between the race relations in the 1980s when you were at Villanova and now? What are the similarities and what are the differences, would you say?
Well, yeah, obviously the similarities is you know, there are still opportunities for people to build some good relationships, right? There's some opportunities. Maybe people haven't taken advantage of opportunities to build a relationship with someone that doesn't look like them from a different socioeconomic background. And that's on both sides, right? Or all sides, right?
Right.
I would say, you know, like again, I write about the police. I write about stereotypes, and you know, you know, I, I really think it's really about people embracing opportunities, right? So we still have that, but I think we've come a long way too, without a doubt. I see it when kids are walking home from school in my neighborhood. Kids are hanging out, they're communicating. That doesn't mean that there still aren't problems, but I think it's gotten much better. But we still have issues. The issues that we still have are just still important issues, right?
Right.
But I think more people have had an opportunity to build relationships across socioeconomic backgrounds more so than the 80s. So I think it's gotten better.
And so when I got done reading this book, you feel a certain what do you want people to take from this book after they read it? What are they in their mind thinking, and what do you hope they're thinking? I mean,
yeah. There's a lot of things you can learn. I intentionally wrote about a lot of different topics so people can walk away saying, you know, I got it. And I'll start with, it's difficult. Seriously, if we're having an honest conversation, it's difficult for me to walk in your shoes. It would just also be difficult for you to walk in my shoes. So what I purposely did was highlighted enough people in my book where you could finish the book and go, I can relate to Don DeCarlo or Bob Lambert, or someone else could relate to Gene Fazio, right? There's enough characters. There's enough characters in my book where everybody has an opportunity to be able to relate to someone, and it'll be easy for them to relate to them, because I don't expect people to be able to walk in my shoes if they're from a different socioeconomic background or race. So I've highlighted more than enough people where people can read it and go, wow, I can relate to that person. I get it. There's somebody who thinks like me or would have done this or that in a positive way. So it's a little easier. Another thing I did, I wanted to make sure people had an opportunity to see how my teammates were able to embrace each other and build great relationships. So people could see it, understand it, and go, oh, hey, that's how they did it, right? It's very difficult for some folks to, again, who don't have long-term relationships across socioeconomic backgrounds and religions and races, to figure out how to have that conversation. How do I have that? How do I start that conversation? So I write about how my teammates and I were able to do that.
so people that read this book, I guess one of the outcomes would be that you would hope it would help race relations.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to back up a minute too when you were talking about going to Cheney, and I don't know if we touched on this enough, but how did you get from Jacksonville to Cheney? I mean,
That's a great story.
yeah.
Well,
Tell us that.
after high school, the book starts off with me graduating high school. I was not one of the lucky ones that earned a scholarship. So I had a few teammates that earned scholarships, Boston College, Central Florida, North Carolina, Mississippi, be it either in track or football. And so, but I didn't. So I basically decided, listen, I'm going to figure out a way to get to college to play football. But while I was figuring it out, I got a job and I worked, helped mom out with bills because my sister was at Bethune-Cookman, which is another HBCU in Daytona Beach. So I was basically working out, trying to figure out what opportunities. Am I going to go the junior college route? Whatever it was. And the next thing you know, my sister was in the background, so to speak, her and my godmother, figuring out where it would be a good start for me to go to college. And Cheney turned out to be it. I also had a high school teammate that was at Cheney. So it was really, you heard the term, it takes a village. There are a number of people that had their hands in getting me into Cheney. So that's how I got to Cheney.
Cheney.
Yeah.
And then you spent a year at Cheney?
One semester.
One semester.
One semester.
Was it more that you thought you could play football at a higher level? Is that switch from Cheney to Villanova?
Yeah, I mean, I gained so much confidence at Cheney during spring practice.
Yeah.
And when I got the opportunity to visit Villanova, my confidence level was much higher. And I said, hey, I think I could do this. And then Villanova dropped their football program after Howie Long got drafted to the Raiders. It was gone for 3 years. They brought it back in the fall of '84. So it was perfect timing for me to say, okay, I'm going to be transferring to a program that's starting up again, versus transferring to a program, say if I had transferred to Penn State, that was already established. That might have been difficult for me. I don't know. I don't think so, but you never know. But so it was a great opportunity to transfer to Villanova because they were starting the program up again.
And Villanova's football staff, were there any black assistant coaches?
One. When I transferred in, one.
Okay, one.
One.
I was just curious what that was like, the first time playing this game that you love with majority of white coaches that you never had before.
Great question, Rich. I write about that. So I go from all black male coaches at the junior high level, high school level, Cheney. I get to Villanova. There's one black coach. He's coaching, I think, linebackers. So my first coach at Villanova, my first position coach, is Paul Ferraro, and he's from New Jersey, and he's a screamer, right? So I had to adjust to his coaching style, and I didn't think I could. I had never had a white man in my face yelling at me in my life, right? And so I went, and with the help of my teammates, Bob Rosado, Jay Curcio, Nate Booknight from Norristown, these guys were able to help me understand that he was a player's coach. And once I was able to give him the same level of respect that I gave my black coaches, he was able to coach me and make me a better player. So that was part of my evolution.
Interesting, yeah.
Giving him the same level of respect that I gave my black coaches. Because my black coaches yelled and pulled my face mask. That's what we used to do back in the day. They don't do that anymore. But once I did that, everything was fine.
Well, let me ask you, what's next for you? Do you have a sequel to this book, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Great question. 2 more books. The next book will be on coaches. It's great that you asked that. And they'll all be along the same lines of diversity and inclusion. But the next book will be about coaches. And then the final book will be about the media in that diversity and inclusion space.
And is that something you're working on now, or you're
going to get started somewhat soon, probably 6 months from now. Right now it's about promoting this book and speaking to folks and delivering a message about diversity and inclusion through sports, because it's a great message.
And if somebody wants to get this book, what would be the easiest and best way for them to,
Go to my website.
your website?
Go to my website.
And I think we have that up on the screen.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Go to my website, all the information. They'll find all their favorite online retailers right there.
yeah, so that I guess again you could say what people would take away from this book. Can you tell us in a sentence or two what you would want them to take from this book?
Absolutely.
When they read it, what would that be?
Well, you've heard the cliche before, but for athletes, don't give up. Whatever your dream is, don't quit. Go for it. Work hard. And then the next message would be regarding race relations is you have to make an investment in people, right? And when you embrace different environments and different cultures, it makes you wiser.
Yeah.
We don't use that word anymore. Wiser. Remember in the 80s, that word was like the best word? He's wise, she's wise.
Yeah.
An elder, they're wise. But yeah, it'll make you wiser, it'll make you smarter. It will enrich your life without a doubt.
Well, Bo, since I know you pretty well, I want to thank you for coming by, and I want to wish you all the luck in the world with the book. And it's a good read. I've read it, and it's an excellent book. And I hope you do well with it, and we'll be looking forward to your sequels, your next two books. And again, up on the screen, we can let the people know how to get it through your website.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And for myself and everyone here at Mainline Network, I want to thank you for tuning in to Faces on the Main Line. See you next time.